السنة مثل سفينة نوح، من ركبها نجا ومن تركها غرق.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. As to what proceeds, once again we need to study the classical text known as Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, and we studied the question that فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ بِمَا تَعْرِفُ رَبَّكَ. In the English edition, it's question number 3. So if it is said to you, how did you come to know your Rabb? Then the answer will be, I know him by his ayat and his makhluqat. Ayat, I discussed in the previous meetings, what does the word ayah refer to? So the way of establishing the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wujud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is through his ayat and his makhluqat. This is the way of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. When they give da'wah and when they call people to al-Islam, they do that which can be found in the Quran and in the Sunnah. They do not have to indulge in philosophical arguments or use rhetoric, falsafa wa mantiq, or engage in ilm al-kalam, which is known as theological dialectic argumentation. But they restrict themselves to the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ilm al-kalam, which is known as theological dialectic argumentation. But they restrict themselves to the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, starting with the Quran and reflecting and discussing the ayat of the Quran. And then from amongst the creation, and we covered these ayat last week. We covered from his ayat are the night and the day, and the sun and the moon, and from his creation, makhluqat, are the heavens and the earth, and all that is in between, or the samawat. And then we went through some of the evidence with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after that, we covered the question that came after it, which was, if it is said to you, for what purpose did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create? فَإِنْ قِيلَ لَكَ لِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَكَ. So if you are asked that why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create you, then say, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you, that you worship him alone, without associating any partners with him in worship, in ibadah, and obedience to him by carrying out what he ordered and abandoning what he prohibited. And the evidence for that is Surah Al-Zariyat, ayah number 56. Then we went through the other ayat that followed them. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, Surah Al-Nisa, ayah number 36. And إِنَّهُ مَن يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةَ وَمَأْوَاهُ النَّارُ, Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 72, that we know that if a person was to die upon shirk and did not seek Allah's forgiveness, then he will enter into the hellfire for eternity. His final destination will be the hellfire, and Jannah will be haram for him. Jannah will be haram for him here indicates that he will remain in the hellfire for eternity. He will remain in the hellfire for eternity, forever. That's what Allah said, فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ. Then we went through the other ayah, which is وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. This is Surah Al-Jinn, ayah number 18. In this ayah, we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about an act of ibadah, which is dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the masajid are only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The masajid are only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that in the masajid we only call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah clearly indicates that dua is an act of ibadah. Dua is an act of ibadah, and that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be called upon in the masajid. Calling anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the masajid is an act of shirk. And in the next ayah also, we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, وَمَنْ يَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ لَا بُرْهَانَ لَهُ بِهِ فَإِنَّمَا حِسَابُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُ, which is Surah Al-Mu'minun, ayah number 117. Again, this ayah talks about the same act of ibadah, which is ad-du'a. Dua, it talks about dua, and again it says that if you call upon anybody else, those who call upon anybody else other than Allah, they have no burhan for this, no solid proof for this. Then the third ayah that was mentioned with regards to dua again is وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. Surah Al-Ghafir, ayah number 60. Again, this ayah talks about dua, the same act of ibadah. So in these three previous ayat, Allah talks about one type of ibadah, which is ad-dua. The reason of why ad-dua was mentioned by Shaykh al-Islam al-Wahha rahimahullah ta'ala, as we know that the condition of the Kuffar of Makkah was such that they would call upon other than Allah in the state of easiness. When they were in a state of easiness, they would call upon their idols. But if there came a time of difficulty or a calamity, they feared something, then they would call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. As Allah mentions in the Quran, فَإِذَا رَكِبُوا فِي الْفُلْكِ دَعَوُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. That when they would embark upon their ships, when they would go on their ships, then they would ask upon Allah, then they would call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely. As you know that even now and in the olden days, when you would travel upon the ships because of the waves and because of the journey, people would be scared that they would not make it to shore. So whilst they were in the sea, and whilst they were traveling, and as soon as those waves would come, or the ship or the boat would start rocking, they would fear death. And then they would call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. So dua was an act of ibadah during the time of the pagans of Makkah, which was divided. At the time of calamity, it was only for Allah, and at the time of ease and happiness, they would forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah mentions when He says, فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would let them reach the shore or get to the shore safely, إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ, then they will go back to their shirk. So in these three ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned ad-dua. And Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, he makes an inference, or he relates the past with the present. He said, just like the people of the past would divide their ibadah, a type of ibadah which is ad-du'a, calling upon Allah, for Allah and for other than Allah by associating partners with Him. In the very same way, the people of Makkah, the pagans of Makkah, and those who came after them and still follow their path till this day. But the difference is that these people do the opposite. They call upon other than Allah in the times of difficulty. So when they are in a calamity, they will call upon other than Allah. They will ask from other than Allah. Whereas the pagans of Makkah used to do the opposite. Once they would be at shore and at ease, they would associate partners with Allah. And at the time of stress, they knew in reality that the only one that could really relieve them was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what they would do. So the Shaykh has brought these ayat and has particularly brought an act of ibadah which is of great dispute amongst the Muslims at that time. That is it permissible to call upon other than Allah? And these ayat are clear that it is not. It is an act of shirk to call upon other than Allah. Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is as-sami', that can hear everything. This is a quality or a sifa which is khas for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you call upon anybody other than Allah, then you have equated whatever is being called upon, that person or that being or whatever is called upon also has the ability and can hear everything like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, then the Shaykh rahimahullah, he mentioned a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam where he said it's been reported in the Sunnah. Sunnah, as we know, famously are the 4 books of hadith, famously, although there is other than them, which is Sunan Abi Dawud, Sunan al-Tirmidhi, like they say, Sunan al-Nasai, and Sunan Ibn Majah. So the Shaykh rahimahullah, he mentions and he says that it has been reported on the authority of Anas ibn Malik that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ad-du'a'u mukhul ibad. That dua is the essence of ibadah. Mukh, in the Arabic language, they say, means the essence of something. The essence of a human being is his brain. So that's why they call your brain in the Arabic language mukh. They say that this is your mukh. So the essence of something is known as mukh in the Arabic language. But this hadith is da'if. That which is agreed upon by Ahl al-Hadith is that this hadith is da'if. This hadith has been mainly reported by At-Tirmidhi, hadith number 3371. And the hadith is gharib as min hadha al-wajh, as At-Tirmidhi said, and that is a statement where Tirmidhi indicates towards some form of weakness. And the weaknesses that can be found in this hadith are due to 2 narrators. Al-Walid ibn Muslim, who is although he is thiqqa, but he is mudallis, and Ibn Lahi'a, who is da'if and a mudallis. These are terminologies in hadith for those of you who study hadith. But that which has been authentically established from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the hadith ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah. This hadith has been reported by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. Imam Bukhari narrated it in al-Adab al-Mufrad. Abu Dawud in his Sunan. Also At-Tirmidhi narrated it at 2979 in his Sunan. and 3347 and 3372. In 3 places, Imam al-Tirmidhi narrated this hadith, al-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah, and Ibn Majah, and other than them. So that which is sahih is al-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah, which means, they say, when a statement is made, which was made by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah means that calling upon is in reality ibadah. The ibadah is ad-du'a and du'a is ibadah. Parallel, that it's exactly the same. If you call ad-du'a ibadah, there is no problem. And you call ibadah ad-du'a is exactly the same. Although du'a is a category of ibadah, one type of ibadah. So the Prophet ﷺ made it crystal clear that there is no doubt, no room for argumentation, that dua is not a form of ibadah. Because there are certain people who are upon the wrong path and are deviated, who think that dua is not a form of ibadah. That's why you can call upon other than Allah. So when you have a discussion with somebody, you ask them, is dua an act of ibadah? Yes or no? If it is an act of ibadah, then who is it done to? If it is done to Allah, is it done to Allah alone? If it is not done to Allah alone, then who is it done to? If it is done to other than Allah, what is it done to other than Allah? If it is done to other than Allah, then what is the ruling of doing it to other than Allah? And what about when the word dua has been mentioned in the Quran in the 3 places where we just studied? What is the meaning of this then? So then that means that either dua is an act of ibadah which is specifically for Allah, or it is shirk. If it is shirk, then we know that no acts of ibadah can be shared with other than Allah. So if it is shirk, then it is setting up a rival or an equal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah, finishes any argument. It's a decisive hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which abolishes, destroys, and eliminates any doubt or any argument for anybody that calls upon other than Allah. Because you're asking, how can ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah be devoted and done for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So this is with regards to ad-du'a'u huwa al-ibadah. Then the Shaykh rahimahullah, he says, وَأَوَّلُ مَا فَرَضَ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِبَادِهِ الْكُفْرَ بِالتَّاغُوتِ وَالْإِيمَانَ بِاللَّهِ. قال تعالى وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And the first and foremost of what Allah made obligatory upon His servants is disbelief in the Taghut, all false deities of worship, and Iman, correct belief in Allah. And then he quoted the ayah as evidence. He said, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And indeed we have sent among every ummah a messenger proclaiming, worship Allah alone and abstain and stay away from Taghut, all false deities that are worshipped besides Allah. So the first obligation upon a Muslim, as the Shaykh mentioned, upon the slaves and the servants of Allah, is al-Kufra bil-Taghut. Al-Kufra is to reject and deny. Bil-Taghut, anything that is worshipped other than Allah. And as the Shaykh will explain in the statement to come. So as we know that the first pillar of al-Islam, La ilaha illallah, has two pillars. Has two pillars. ركنان. الركن الأول is nafi, negation. And والركن الثاني is affirmation. So your shahada, your testimony is either you reject and negate. Then you affirm. You negate and deny and disbelieve in everything that is worshipped other than Allah. You make your position clear by proclaiming this publicly, that everything that is worshipped other than Allah, or any deity that is worshipped other than Allah, is worshipped upon batil. And then you affirm with iman, with faith, that only one that deserves to be worshipped in truth is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as we can see, that the shahada starts with negation, which is rejection. And why is that? The reason for this is that when we look at the Prophet ﷺ's life in his Meccan period, we know that it has been transmitted that there was about 360 gods or idols that were kept inside the Kaaba. And at the same time, the pagans of Mecca, they confirmed and affirmed that they believed in Allah. As we have studied in our previous lesson, that they never denied that there was an Allah. And they never denied that Allah was the Khaliq, meaning they never believed that two creators can create the heavens and the earth. They said there's only one. And they also believed that in reality, the one that could harm and benefit was Allah. Based upon this notion that they already believed in Allah, but they were committing shirk with Allah, the first thing that was commanded by Allah is to reject and deny and make Kufr with Taghut. Al-Kufr with Taghut. That they were told to make Al-Kufr with Taghut, because the notion of the people of Mecca, or the belief of the people of Mecca at that time, was to believe in Allah and believe in the idols that they worship. So first they were told, clean yourself from the impurity that you have indulged in. And then, once you have purified yourself, and when you purify yourself, that means there is no associate or partner. Then when you make that, when you proclaim, then that proclaiming is sincere, without any doubt or without any association. So first cleanse yourself and purify yourself of anything that is worshipped other than Allah. And for those who did not, for example, for people like us who are, alhamdulillah, born into Muslim families, born upon the fitrah, as we know that everybody is born upon the fitrah to only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everybody is naturally born to deny and reject at-Taghut. But those of us who are born, and when we repeat the Shahada, then we firstly glorify and profess that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no partner or associate, and we continuously make this rejection. We continuously make this rejection, so that we are mindful that we don't fall into worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this al-Kufr with Taghut, that the pagans of Makkah were commanded that they worship Allah alone without any partner associate, that they cleanse themselves, purify themselves, they reject and they deny. And only when after they have rejected and they deny, then they affirm. Because the affirmation before they rejected was of no benefit. Do we understand? If somebody affirmed that Allah is the true deity that deserves to be worshipped, whilst making or setting up rivals and associates with Allah, then that affirmation was of no benefit. But when he denied and rejected, if he previously believed in this, then this was a pure cleansing of his belief. So his belief becomes disbelief at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the people of Makkah, being very eloquent of the Arabic language, would not make this statement unless they believed in it. Unless they believed in it. That's why whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, "Qulu la ilaha illallah," they would say, "No, we can't. La ilaha illallah," because they knew that this meant disbelief. So they were commanded to disbelieve, reject, denounce, cleanse themselves, and then affirm. Because logically, if they were told to affirm whilst believing in this, then this would have no benefit or make no sense. Is that clear? And then the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he mentions and he says, what is Taghut? What does Taghut mean? There's a lot of discussion about Taghut, and we find that the people go into extreme when it comes to Taghut. We want to understand the meaning of Taghut as it was understood by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the context that it has been mentioned in the Quran, and as it was understood by the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. So the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he said, وَالطَّاغُوتُ مَا عُبِدَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أو الشيطان الكهان والمنجم ومن يحكم بغير ما أنزل الله وكل متبوع مطاع على غير الحق. And Taghut is what is worshipped besides Allah, or the shaitan, or the kuhan, the sorcerers, the soothsayers, and the munajjim, the fortune tellers, and the one that rules other than what Allah has revealed. And everyone who is followed and obeyed without right, not upon the truth. So the Shaykh mentioned here the following categories of Taghut. First, he defined Taghut is whatever is worshipped besides Allah. Then he mentioned Shaitan as a Taghut. Then he mentioned the soothsayer and fortune tellers. That's the fourth. Then he mentioned the one who does not rule by the book of Allah. And then he mentioned everyone who is followed and obeyed without right. He is known as a Taghut. Now, then we have, after he mentioned the categories of Taghut, or the different types of Taghut here, and he mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He mentioned how many? 6. Then he brought the statement of Al-Allama Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala to further elaborate. And what did he define as a Taghut? So he said that Ibn Qayyim said, At-Taghutu ما تجاوز به العبد حده من معبود أو متبوء أو مطاع. He said Taghut comes from Tughyan, and it is going beyond the bounds and increasing upon them. Every created thing has no obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator. So this is what was said with regards to al-Taghut. Now, is it clear what I mentioned just now with regards to what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said? What is al-Taghut? Once again, Taghut comes from al-Tughyan, and Tughyan is going beyond the bounds and increasing upon them. Anything that exceeds its boundaries is known as Tughyan in the Arabic language. In the context that it has been mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah, it refers to everything, every created thing is a servant of Allah. So if he goes beyond the bounds of this servitude, he becomes a Taghut of disobedience. So there is no ibadah except for Allah, and no following except for the command of Allah, and no obedience to the creation in obedience to the Creator. Now we have the issue of al-hukmu bighayri ma anzala Allah. Al-hukmu bighayri ma anzala Allah. To rule by other than Allah. If a person does not rule by other than Allah, is he a Kafir? This is a discussion that we find amongst many people. Some people say he's a Kafir. Some people say he's not a Kafir. And all types of answers. And in this mas'ala, we find that many of the people are not upon the way of al-Sunnah. The mother of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah with regards to the mas'ala of takfir or the mas'ala of al-hukmu bighayri ma anzala Allah is a mas'ala which is based upon wasatiyyah, in moderation, taking into consideration of all the texts that can be found in the Quran and Sunnah and harmonizing it collectively. So we have some questions that was asked to Shaykh al-Islam of this time, Abdul bin Baz rahmatullah alayhi, with regards to the one who does not rule by the book of Allah. What should our stance be? So we have rulers that don't rule by the book of Allah. Nobody can deny this. So what should our position be? Should we declare them to be disbelievers? Should we stay silent? Should we give consent? All these questions people ask, what should be our position? And nobody greater to answer this question in our times than Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz rahmatullah alayhi. And I will tell you a benefit why. When I was in India and was studying hadith with Mufti Muhammad Ra'is Nadwi rahmatullah alayhi from the books of hadith. And when we came to the issue of the rulers and obedience to the rulers, samwata. And when we came to the issue of al-hukmu bighayri ma anzala Allah, our Shaykh Mufti Muhammad Ra'is Nadwi, the Shaykh of Jami Salafiyya, he said that these issues, which is with regards to as-samwata, obedience to the rulers, and with regards to those rulers that don't rule by the book of Allah, in this time and age of ours should be taken from Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz. He is an Imam in this area. After from the books of the Salaf. In this time, due to the contemporary issues that we see, and a lot of the doubts that we see, he said that read the books of Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz. And there's no doubt that Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz was from amongst those who used to sit with the Muslim rulers, advise the Muslim rulers. And he would admonish the Muslim rulers and tell them to follow the Kitab and the Sunnah. So inshallah we shall go through these questions again, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, in our next lesson. But today, briefly now, before we take a break, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, end today's lesson, is that not everybody who rules by other than Allah is a kafir. This is the first thing. Not everybody who rules by other than Allah is a kafir. So therefore, those who say that anybody who rules by other than what Allah has revealed is a kafir, this is against the manhaj of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. I'll give you an example. If a person sins, if a person drinks alcohol, drinking alcohol is halal or haram. Has he ruled by the book of Allah or by other than the book of Allah? By drinking alcohol. Has he?
No.
He hasn't. He hasn't ruled by the book of Allah. The Quran says that you can't drink alcohol. His action goes against what the Quran says. So here he has ruled بِغَيْرِ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. What has he done? He has done an action which is against what Allah has revealed. But he's not a kafir. Nobody says he's a kafir. Does anybody say he's a kafir? Anybody that commits a sin, does he say he's a kafir? So our first thing we need to understand is not everybody who rules by other than Allah is a kafir. Whether it's a ruler or whether it's an individual. This is the first thing we need to understand. Secondly, we need to understand that the mas'ala of ruling other than Allah has a detailed discussion. It's something which is detailed. You need to ask. You need to investigate. You can't just say somebody rules by the book of Allah is a kafir. So there is no absolute takfir for the one who rules by other than Allah as being a kafir, absolutely at the start. The only people who say this are the Khawarij. Khawarij. And in this time, as we know, people like ISIS, they're the ones who adhere to this position that anybody that rules by other than the book of Allah is a kafir. Mutlaq. They may not say this theoretically, but practically they practice this. So this is something which is established. The other thing we need to understand is that Kufr is of two types. Kufr akbar wa Kufr asghar. Kufr akbar, the perpetrator of Kufr akbar leaves the fold of Islam. Kufr asghar does not expel you from the fold of Islam, which is minor kufr. Major kufr and minor kufr. Kufr akbar is major, you leave the fold of Islam. Kufr asghar is minor, you don't leave the fold of Islam. Kufr asghar is also known as kufr duna kufr. Kufr duna kufr. This is the next issue. So whenever somebody comes to you and asks you, what do you say with regards to ruling ruling by other than Allah, then you will say that the mas'ala has tafseel, there is detail. What do you mean by ruling by other than Allah? Then we will say, we have rulers, Muslim rulers. If a Muslim ruler does not rule by other than what Allah has revealed, in the following circumstances, he will be declared a kafir. If he explicitly makes halal that which Allah has made haram, which is known as al-Isla. Al-Isla. If he makes halal, which Allah has made haram, he will be declared a kafir. Kufr akbar. Number 2, al-Juhud. Al-Juhud is denial. If he denies anything which Allah has revealed in the Quran, he will be a kafir. He will be somebody who will commit kufr akbar. Number 3, takdhib, which is rejection. He rejects something which Allah has revealed. He will be declared a kafir. Then we have at-tafdheel. If he thinks that what he is ruling by other than what Allah has revealed to be better, even then he is a kafir. How many is that? Number 5. If he says that the Sharia and the man-made law is equal, then he is a kafir. How many is that? Or if he has anything that is from the man-made law and he says that this is part of the Sharia, he is a kafir. This in general are those circumstances where the ruler will be declared a disbeliever. He will be declared a disbeliever who leaves the fold of Islam if he does any of these acts, as mentioned by the people of knowledge. And inshallah, the next lesson, we shall in detail cover some of these issues in detail before we move on. And these categories can be found in Fath al-Majid, the Sharh of Kitab al-Tawheed, Ibrahim bin Hassan, al-Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala. Now, we should stop here and we will start next lesson with the issue of al-Hukm bi-ghayri ma anzal Allah, and inshallah complete it. Then we will start al-Asl ath-Thani, which will be ma dinuk. And we'll stop here for a break. وجزاكم الله خيرا وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.